The other side of real estate.
Keep saying my money. It's our money, though.
You didn't even talk to me on this. We haven't even gotten married yet. There should be a distinction between both of us.
Right, look, this smart house. We got a smart house over here. This is a smart house.
The smart house is smarter than you because you didn't make this decision
what
with
you
me. You better get the dang money back because I'm not doing it.
Bro, we staying here, bro. Don't worry about it, bro.
So you want us?
No, so we staying here. I can't get the money back.
You have to read the room. If you can tell that your partner is visibly upset, but at the same time you think it's cute that I'm going to continue to record her, already shows that they are not in tune with each other. I mean, this whole thing was awkward. I felt bad for the realtor that was standing there. Then this guy is pleading to the realtor, saying, no, we're gonna live here, we're gonna live here. I highly, highly doubt that altogether. Hello, beautiful people. I hope all is well. I hope all is well. Welcome to the Love and Real Estate Limited Series podcast hosted by me, Alison Wellington, better known as Align with Alison. In today's episode, we are going to be talking about purchasing property with someone who is not your spouse and all of the complexity that comes along with that. We have Tukes Productions at the helm, and we would like to thank Garland Media Group for sponsoring this limited series. Tukes, take it away with the clip. Let's show the people what we're talking about.
The other side of real estate.
Keep saying my money. It's our money, though. It's our money. Get it together. It's our
You
money.
didn't even talk to me on this. What is wrong with you today?
Okay, we in a relationship. I consulted with you. I told you we get in the house. You told me you trust my judgment, right? You said you trust my
We
judgment.
haven't even gotten married yet. There should be a distinction between both of us.
All right, we made a decision already. I gave the earnest deposit already. Look, this smart house. We got a smart house over here. This is a smart house.
The smart house is smarter than you because you didn't make this
That's what
decision
you
with
wanted.
me.
All right, that's cool.
I don't know. I'm not doing this. You better get the dang money back because I'm not doing it.
I
Figure
can't
it
get the
out.
money back.
I don't care. Figure it out and get my money back.
I can't get the money
I'm
back.
not staying here.
I'm staying here. Bro, we staying here, bro. Don't worry about it, bro.
So you want us?
No, so we staying here. I was getting the earnest deposit already. We staying here.
You can't leave.
That's what I'm saying. We staying here. I can't get the money back. I can't get the money back. We gotta stay here.
Get the damn money back.
You clueless. Yo, ain't nothing wrong with this house. Look at this house. Backyard, cool neighbors, all that. Yeah, she over there cussing. Look at her, y'all. Acting a fool. Acting a nut. Yeah, whatever. This house is nice. It's a big house.
Okay, so there's lots of layers to this particular video, and overall, there's a lack of communication and a lack of boundaries that happen between both parties. Let me start by saying both of them made mistakes. I know folks want to jump out the window and might say the dude was wrong, the boyfriend was wrong, but let's talk about where they went wrong step by step. So number one, it is highly recommended that you do not have a joint account with someone who is not your spouse. I have heard divorce attorneys discuss this. I have heard relationship experts discuss this. And the reason being is that if there is a breakup or a separation, there is no clear boundary as to who owns what, and there are no laws that protect either party. Also, if someone were to pass away, because we do have to plan for the worst, if someone were to pass away, then what's the conversation going to be? There's nothing that clearly delineates who's what and who's who and who owns what. So what the recommendation is from some of the lead divorce attorneys is that instead what folks should do who are not married yet, they should have two separate accounts at the same bank. Why is that beneficial? Because then you can very easily transfer money wherever you see fit. But if you're not legally married yet, and now it's time for us to separate our assets, it makes things very awkward, very confused, and there is no law and no protection that's put in place for those who are no longer together, but were never legally married in the first place. So that's where both parties went wrong in the beginning. Number two, and I'm sure y'all already know, poor communication. Poor communication from the absolute beginning. I don't know if you guys heard this because the woman was screaming and spazzing and carrying on. Once she was upset when she found out that her boyfriend took 75% of her money and put it towards the house, he said, "You told me that you trusted me. You told me that you trusted my decision making." I'm sure a lot of y'all didn't hear that, so you're going to have to run that back perhaps, right? So what was the conversation? Did she tell her boyfriend that she trusts him to make the decision that was best for both of them? Is that even true? She didn't address it, so I'm going to take it like she absolutely told him that. Now, she may have not anticipated that he took full throttle and actually extracted the money from the account, but if you tell your partner that you trust them in their decision making, and then they make a decision, you cannot be too upset about the fact that they actually then take action and do what was asked. Another element of poor communication is he purchased a home that she didn't like. Did they never sit down and talk about what her musts were, what her likes were? I can tell you for my husband, because we purchased a house together, that we sat down and made a list of exactly what his needs were in a house and what his wants were, and the same for me. So when we actually started the house hunting process, it was very clear as to what we needed to have: how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, a backyard. He needed a driveway. All those things. And what was some wants, right? A larger backyard, maybe a second floor. And so we had to then give or take. But he's talking about it's a smart house and all of these other things. Did they ever really sit down and be super clear as to what the requirements were for both of them to be happy in that home? Also, I have to tell you that it seemed like the boyfriend was the one who was recording. And, a lot of times in social media, you don't know what's a skit from what's not a skit. But at the same time, at what point did he say, perhaps I need to stop recording? Now, of course, to our benefit on social media and to this podcast, we get to see this kind of footage. But at the same time, you have to read the room. If you can tell that your partner is visibly, upset is not even the word for this woman, right? Visibly upset. But at the same time, you think it's cute that I'm going to continue to record her while she's upset, already shows that they are not in tune with each other. So we have to be super mindful of reading the room and recognizing when this is a time that I need to stop recording. This is a time where I need to step outside and talk to my partner so that we could get on the same page. This whole thing was awkward. I felt bad for the realtor that was standing there. Then this guy is pleading to the realtor, saying, no, we're going to live here. We're going to live here. I highly, highly doubt that altogether. Okay. Now, there's another part that really struck me when she started to break down the percentage of how much of the money in their shared account was hers versus how much of the money in the shared account was his. And the fact that she was already keeping count so early in the game before they're married, to me, gives me some insight that they're going to have some difficulty once they're already married and all of their finances are commingled, and the property and the kids and the dog and the cars. Like, what is that going to look like? She says 75% of that money was my money. Like, the fact that she's aware off the top of her head what percentage she's contributed says to me that she's already counting and pinching pennies, which might be an indicator of problems moving forward. But in all fairness to her, I'd like to know, why is it that 75% of the money in their shared account is hers, right? Now, if we sit down and we have an agreement, which is talked about in terms of budgeting, then there should have been a conversation as to what we're contributing and potentially contributing equally. Now, for whatever reason, perhaps she makes more, it made more sense, but for some reason she's contributing more and then throwing it back in his face. Now, she's throwing it back in his face because she's angry, but that's usually how throwing things in your partner's face looks. It looks like, I ain't going to say nothing now because everything is sweet now. But then once everything gets hot and bothered, now I'm going to bring it up. So there needs to be another conversation around their budgeting. There needs to be another conversation around who's contributing what and why, and making sure that that percentage is equitable. Equity and equality are not the same things. So equality means I'm giving 50%. You're giving 50%. That's equal, 50-50, right? Equity is I make twice the amount of money than you do, so I'm going to contribute twice the amount. Does that make sense? So we need to be mindful that we're having these conversations with our partners before we get married. But again, most importantly, before we make potentially the biggest purchase in our entire lives, something like a home. So my beautiful people, you have to be mindful of having conversation around what you're looking for in a property before putting a dollar down on it, having a conversation about equity versus equality on how much we're contributing, reading the room and being able to pick up on your partner's emotions before you jump the broom to get married, and definitely before you decide to purchase your property. Because guess what? That is only going to be more problematic than ever. And guess what? This phenomenon of couples who are unmarried or purchasing homes is skyrocketing. According to Mass Mutual, 9% of those who are on the market looking for a home are unmarried couples. Rounded up, that's 10%. That's a significant percentage, which is very different from times past. Reason number one, millennials are tending not to marry as quickly for a litany of reasons. Sometimes it has to do with the fact that they're focusing on their careers. Sometimes it has to do with the fact that the dating scene is just not as easy to navigate as it used to be. For whatever the reason is, we have folks who are not married and don't necessarily desire marriage just yet. Less pressure from society to be married, but the pressure to purchase a home is still there. The content that you see every day on your timeline is talking about generational wealth and using real estate in order to create that for your family. And we have to own property, especially if you're Black in America, right? So that pressure to purchase a home is there. The pressure to get married, not so much, especially with the red pill community. We ain't even gonna get into all that today, at least, right? So we have people who are unmarried, desiring property, and just because of the times and inflation, people are realizing that they're not in a position to purchase property on their own. They just can't do it. One income is not enough. The average man in America makes $61,000. The average woman in America makes $51,000. The average home in America costs $458,000. Let's do some math. I'm going to do the math with you. Pull out your calculator, but I'm going to do the math with you, right? So if we're looking at 3.5% down, and then we're also looking at doubling that amount for your closing costs. So approximately 10%. 10% of $458,000 is going to be $45,800. That's how much. I didn't talk about doing any kind of renovation. I didn't talk about adding anything to the property. We didn't talk about any kind of additional costs that just pop up. So renovation means I don't like this kitchen, so I want to change it up. I don't like this bathroom. It has the pink tiles from 1950. I'm going to change it up. Renovation, that's one thing. Now we're talking about things breaking, okay? I just got a brand new roof less than a year ago. Y'all know about that rain that just hit in New York City? I got a leak already. I'm calling the roofer. He blocked me. That's another conversation for another day. Point is, things break and things go wrong. So if we're looking at $45,800 as an average across the country, I'm in New York. I wish you could find a decent house for $4,500, $400. Y'all know what I'm talking about, right? I wish. Nonetheless, on average, what are we talking about here? Like, one person is not a practical approach in terms of purchasing property. So again, we have so many people who are getting together, not legally married, and making these purchases. It can potentially be a recipe for disaster. So what do we do? Well, number one, if you believe in the institution of marriage, like I do, then you may want to consider holding off on purchasing a home with your boo until they become your legally binded husband or wife. That's one approach, right? However, you guys know that all of the real estate experts are saying not to hold off on real estate. And so if you want to take that next step and you want to move forward and you want to make sure that you're grabbing up the properties as you can right now while you're young and healthy, potentially without children, where you're really maxing out on your salary, and you have a great partner, you're not prepared to take that next step. I don't know why you're not prepared to take the next step. I don't know why you're prepared to buy a house but don't want to get married, but we're going to hold the judgment for another day. Then what you need to do is you need to go to some lawyer's office. Why? Because there needs to be some kind of documentation that is created, which, by the way, if you would marry, that's already baked in. But you need to go to somebody's lawyer's office and you need to create some kind of agreement that both parties sign, which will clearly indicate who owes what, who owns what, and what would we do in case we break up, and God forbid if someone passes away. Because if you don't have that very clearly outlined, and God forbid your boo passes away, now you own that house with a mother. And a mother want to sell. They mother want to move everybody in. Grandma's moving into the basement. And what you going to say? Because you have no legal stance in this. This is why I would recommend option A. Hold off. Make sure this is the right partner for you in life and in romance. Get married, then purchase the property. But again, I understand the pressures. I understand watching content from pages like this that say, time is of the essence, take action now. I did the same thing. I purchased my home in 2020 in the middle of the pandemic because I was ready now and I did not want to wait, right? However, if you're going to do that and you're going to purchase a home with someone who is not your legal husband or wife, you need to make sure that there are things that are put in place, documented, not a text message, not pillow talk, that makes it very clear who gets what in case both parties separate. Are we good on that? We're good on that. Now, I'll tell you this. There is one other reason I left off. In all fairness, before y'all get me in the comments, one other reason why you have unmarried couples who are purchasing homes in this day and age. Other than the fact that we don't really feel the pressure for marriage, but we do feel the pressure to purchase a home. A lot of times people have to decide when you look at your finances, are we going to take this $45,800 and invest it in the wedding of our dreams? Or are we going to do the smarter thing? And I put that in quotation marks because everybody has to decide what's best for them. Are they going to instead invest in a property that could potentially, especially if it's a multifamily and we're hacking it, that could bring them income, potentially pay their mortgage in full with leftovers, right? That they could then take that money and invest in more properties and potentially get married later. So I understand the logic. I understand the logic, but you absolutely have to protect yourself. We're going to take a quick commercial break because I would be remiss if I did not thank the sponsors of this limited series, Love and Real Estate, Garland Media Group, for their continued support. All right, let's keep going. So what are some of the pros? You already know that I'm biased. My name is Alison. I'm a certified dating and relationship coach. I work with single women to help them get into healthy, committed relationships that lead to marriage. I am a happily married woman. So y'all already know that these shows are going to be a little bit biased and y'all going to be all right with that, right? But there are some legitimate pros. There are some good sides in terms of a boyfriend, girlfriend, or, I hate boyfriend, girlfriend because I'm not in high school, but y'all know what I'm talking about, right? Like a couple that's not married, partners, okay? Now, there are some legitimacies that make sense. Another side of the coin is if we have two people who are unmarried and they decide that they want to purchase property, then because they are not legally married, both parties can take advantage of the first-time home buyer benefits. What are we talking about? The 3.5% FHA down payment, right? So since both parties are not legally married, each person can take advantage of that. And so instead of you having one property between the two of you, you have two properties between the two of you. So in theory, how could this work? We can decide that potentially whoever has the highest credit, or if we have someone who was a service member to the military, we take that person first. We choose whoever's going to be the first person. We pool our financial resources, we find a property, and that person purchases that property under their name exclusively. Okay? Now, once we're able to reestablish the pot, we're able to contribute our finances again, the second person, because they're not legally married, can now then take advantage of those tax write-offs and all the things that come with being a first-time home buyer. So again, I did like a 10-minute spiel on the downside, but there are some definite benefits at the same time. But again, we have to reiterate, you must protect yourself. Protect yourself in the case of a breakup. Protect yourself in the case, God forbid, someone passes away. You don't want to end up owning a home with somebody's uncle that's across the country, right? Like, we need to make sure that it's very clearly outlined, which is why my recommendation is that you wait until you're married, okay? So, to conclude, there are pros and cons in purchasing a home with a partner, but ultimately you have to decide what is best for you. And what I want to make sure is, I'm going to thank all of you guys for listening, but I want to make sure that all of you guys get the opportunity to take advantage of an amazing bundle that can help you to get started on your journey to purchasing a home. So you can get the House Hackonomics as well as the Real Estate Manifesto bundle by Matt Garland for only $44.44 at mgbookstore.com. The link will also be in the show notes. That's mgbookstore.com. Make sure that you come right back and you check out the next episode of our limited series, Love and Real Estate. Again, I am Alison Wellington. You can find me at every major platform at Align with Alison. Thank you again to Tukes Productions as well as Garland Media Group for sponsoring the show. And as always, don't forget that there's no generational wealth without family. Have a good one.